Welcome back. Thank you once again for hanging out with us. This is the one and only IT in the D Show. I'm your host, Bob Waltonspiel, hanging out with producer, co-host extraordinaire, Randall Walker. Guest this week, the legend. He is in the house, Jer Staes. You know him from Daily Detroit, and you can find us online, itinthed.com. Do us a favor. Give us a like on the socials and subscribe to us everywhere fine podcasts are sold. Don't forget meetup.com/itinthed. End of year event. The venue has changed. Scout Ferndale has ceased its operations after only being open for 2 months, Randy?
And 2-3 months.
Yeah, so we're gonna move to the Detroit Shipping Company on 474 Peterborough down in Midtown Detroit. So we'll be there on December 19th from 5 until ? No speakers, no cover, just a bunch of IT folks hanging out. We've been getting some good crowds lately, and hopefully you can make it. We've teamed up with the Low Key Data Meetup, and also I'm trying to think of the other one, Randy, Scrum Detroit. So got some cool people showing up at our events now, and hopefully we can get out to see you. And don't forget, too, the Detroit Podcasting Company. We got our launch party on December 5th at the Detroit Shipping Company. Randy and I are opening up our own studio. So
that is tonight, if you are listening when this episode drops.
It is this week. Jesus, time is flying. This shouldn't be December. Thanksgiving was way too late. I tried to book Santa for my kids next week, and he's booked solid all weekend at Great Lakes Crossing. So I had to go, literally, I'm doing it on like midweek at like 8:00 at night. My kids are going to hate me. Jer, how you doing? It is awesome seeing you. I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever, and it's been like, 2 days, but it's awesome seeing you. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. So I think people should give you a like also for your after Thanksgiving leftover skills as well. I don't know if this has ever been broached on IT in the D. It might be considered a technical skill, but you're very good at this. And I think you should share with the people because you've got a heck of a post-Thanksgiving waffle game.
So I'm going to go with the new recipe. Then I'm going to go back to the waffle game. The new recipe is a banger. I'll give him a shout out. Former TEDx speaker, Michael Mode. I grew up, old friend of mine. I'll make a pretzel bread sausage stuffing, and you basically throw that in the iron skillet, and you get it till it's scorching hot. Then you throw in 2 scrambled eggs and some cheese, and you make a egg stuffing skillet. And I made that yesterday, and it was as good as advertised. It was one of the best things I've eaten for breakfast in a long time. But my waffle, I don't want to say it's legendary. There's a woman that went viral on either TikTok or Instagram that just does stuffing in the waffle and then throws everything else on top. No. So I start mashed potatoes and stuffing as kind of like a softball size each. Throw it in a thing. Dice up everything else: onion, celery, ham, sausage, turkey. Either throw in a can of cream corn or like 4 eggs for binder. And you throw it in the waffle iron for about 10-12 minutes, and you put gravy and cranberry on top. Nice. And I had 2 of them. This is the first year I've had 2 of them.
Nice.
And they're fantastic. So you get the crispy bits. You literally get, and my funny thing is that when I post it online every year, and I either get I've been waiting for this all year, or it's a heart attack on a plate, which I don't understand this rationale of thinking, Jer, because you ate that yesterday. And now you're going to tell me that's a heart attack on a plate because it's all mished together. I don't get it.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And even the best doctors that I have talked to over the years say that you're not going to be in trouble if you just enjoy Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's the problem is when you hold back from that stuff and you try to make yourself be like, oh, I'm never going to have it. That's when you get off the rails. You should enjoy Thanksgiving and all those things. This year I have a leftover dessert, Bob. May I suggest for your thoughts?
Go on.
Okay. So base, I'm going to keep it all local because it's Daily Detroit, right? So all local. I'm going to do a Hudsonville ice cream as the base, west side of the state. I'm going to do a cranberry relish from Westbourne Market. So it's like a cranberry, orange, lemon relish, a little bit of that on top. And then the new but old but new Sanders hot fudge topping, as much as you want on the top of that. So therefore you can have your good stuff and your sinning all in one bowl. You get a little bit of fresh fruit flavor or cranberry flavor, and then that nice real thick, basey chocolate and the vanilla all in one ice cream that I think would be good for Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Jer, the bottom layer is bumpy cake. Let's go.
Yes. Okay.
Let's go.
Yes. I see your bumpy cake. I will accept that raise. That would be very good, actually. Another one, if you can't find like the whole bumpy cake or it's too much, you go to Bon 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 and get some of the bumpy cake bonds and you could like break it up over it.
Ooh. Wasn't that a Backstreet Boys song or was that NSYNC?
The Bon Bon Bon.
Don't ever do it. Yeah, sorry. I should not have opened that can. You know what I did buy this year was we've been getting this every year, is the tin of chocolate-covered Better Made Ruffles.
Ooh.
Those are 10
yes.
out of 10. You can only have like 2 or 3 of them. They're like super rich, but they are like literally 10 out of 10. They're fantastic.
Oh, I think there's a dark chocolate version too, which I really like. Now, are you a milk chocolate or a dark chocolate guy?
I don't care.
Of it?
Neither, really.
Okay. Really? Okay.
Like if it's mixed with something else, yes. I've never been a chocolate guy.
So you're there for the chip with a little bit of chocolate.
Yeah. So like there's a person at work. She's she should have her own store. She's one of the best bakers. She brings in stuff for us to test all the time. She made a York peppermint patty chocolate brownie stuffed York in the middle. Oh my, I had to send her a text going, that's one of the best dessert things I've ever eaten. So
I got to get that recipe. I love that stuff. I love York peppermint patties. York peppermint patties and weirdly, the whatchamacallit. I like whatchamacallit.
After the Take 5 and the 100,000, the whatchamacallit is my favorite candy bar. And I'm not a candy bar guy at all.
Okay. We should get on like the real show. Yeah,
no kidding. We got to talk Detroit. Obviously, you've been doing Daily Detroit for. Did I get that right? We're on episode 500 next week. You're on. You said, you know what? I got my foot on the gas. You're done. You're on what? You're close to 1,600 now, aren't you?
Yeah, actually, yeah. We passed 1,500 recently, and we are closing up on 1,600 episodes. That'll probably be sometime. I think in the spring of next year, which is. I can't even think about that number. I don't even like when I put it up there, I do the little count because you need to for whatever the RSS in the podcast, but I can't even fathom the number anymore. I feel like I've never not podcasted, which is weird because Bob, you were around when I did not podcast as well as Randy.
I was going to say, I'm the one that told you to buy Daily Detroit, or I'm one of the people that told you to buy. Should I buy it? It's this much money. I'm like, yes. Go.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It's been a wild ride and hopefully continuing on a even wilder one in the future, because people don't just listen to podcasts. They like to get their information about Detroit. And I got to say, Detroit's bigger than ever, man.
I'm excited. I was talking about it today. I work down in Campus Martius now, and across the street in Cadillac Square, they're building the COSM. I think it is COSM.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't seen it, you got to look it up on Instagram. There's one in Dallas, Vegas, LA, but it's like a 8-story IMAX immersive, like your front row in a football game or at an event, boxing, doesn't matter what it is. But I think it's like $60, but you actually get to sit in a couch. And so it's like the best of both worlds. You get to kind of be at the game, you get the big screen, and you get the comfortable experience. Like for me, going to a Lions game is so much work. Like being able to go to an event like this, it's not going to open until 2026.
Well, I mean, they still got to build the whole building out of the ground. I mean, it's still literally a flat parking lot.
Oh yeah. No, I was looking at out of the window going, where in the hell is it going to go? But they have it all fenced off now. I think looks like they're going to break ground on it pretty soon. And then that and the whole RenCen riverfront, knocking down 2 towers, like reshaping. I'm going to say something controversial because I've gotten yelled at on Reddit for making this comment that if you ever gone to San Francisco and you've ever walked from the old Candlestick, I don't know what it's called today, to the wharf, it's 8-lane boulevard, trolleys going down the middle. And I made a comment to somebody going, this could have been Detroit. And they looked at me like I just handed them crack. But legitimately, if you would have taken from Belle Isle all the way to the Ambassador Bridge, 8-lane boulevard, none of this Kobo, none of this the way Jefferson breaks off twice. Like it could have been one of the better riverfronts in the country. Like legit, it could have rivaled Chicago. and it hurts me every time I kind of have to cut through one of the Jeffersons, going, God, this should have been all together. But somebody yelled at me about some church or something that it would have gotten in the way of. But I'm like, just go around it. But I always looked at that as missed opportunity.
Well, I mean, I feel like if you get Jefferson right, and there's plans, actually, I know that you're not an East Sider, so I totally don't understand. I understand most people wouldn't know this, but they're actually rebuilding Jefferson in that spot, kind of from where they're going to be redoing 375 and turning it into some sort of boulevard all the way out to the Grosse Points. There's a real effort underway to make that riverfront whole again. Like, I love the Detroit Riverwalk, don't get me wrong, but when I go to places like Chicago and others, I like to travel to other cities, I still think there's leveling up that we could do. And I think that there are still missed opportunities. And I think that it's really cool and it's great that it wins awards and all that other stuff. But something has needed to change over there because it's beautiful and all that other stuff. But you go through areas of that Riverwalk, and you've been through there, Bob. It's not as cool when you're next to like a parking lot that just has like a weird fence just right next to it. And I think there's still yet another stage of excellence that is going to happen, but I think we got to get people's heads around it, around just how amazing that riverfront district's going to be. We think about the progress that's happened in the last 10 to 15 years. 10 to 15 years from now, we're going to think that we were just in the middle of everything, because in reality, we are still in the middle of the redevelopment.
This goes back, and I'm not trying to do this to besmirch Coleman Young, but like I remember when the casinos went in, and like here's the thing, and we talk about this all the time, like how Cincinnati, like all these major cities like Pittsburgh, they all have their ballparks or their big casinos or whatever on the riverfront. And not to say we did miss the boat in putting them where we put them. And the Greektown one was great where it is, but like, God, just to think if we would have had like either on one side a baseball park, other side a casino, and then tied it all together. Again, these are arguments that over a beer or a coffee.
I think what's frustrating to me is that you remember, and I remember, but I think you might remember better than I. Do you remember like the I think it was the Soul Kitchen or whatever, all the like musicians and the venues through there? They demolished a lot of things that are really cool to make room for these things, and then they didn't build them there. So it was like the double whammy of like taking away the little shoots of things that were there, and then also not putting the thing they wanted to do there, which really set back some of that area for a while.
I can't think of the bar. I was like 19 when it closed, maybe 20. And someone's going to yell at me, but it was like not Metro Music Cafe, but it was something that was, if you're staring at GM Renaissance Center, it was to the left. And
I can't remember. You're right though.
That was the place to be back in and when I turned 21, I think it was finally gone, or it was maybe open for a couple weeks. But do you know what is coming back, or as it came back? They had the soft opening on Friday. This past week was my alma mater, the Post Bar.
I am very excited for that. I saw that post, and my first reaction was, Bob!
Yeah, well, my buddy Frank is running it. Still Jen Wheeler that owns it. So it's still the original people, and it looks like it looks like what it used to be. Because I was like, is it going to be a restaurant? Because that's what they have in Plymouth right now, or is it going to be like the long, skinny dive bar? And it looks like they're I don't think there's food in there, so it looks like it's going to be that that place to hang out. So like I'm super excited to go.
So what were the top 2 or 3 things about the Post for you in the heyday? Because for me, I remember the Post. I went to the Post. There was one over by what we used to be called Cobo, now the Huntington Center.
That was the original one.
Yeah, I strongly remember the East Side one, because those of us from the East Side know that in Grosse Pointe, you couldn't have a dance floor because of all the naughty things that might happen if there was a dance floor. So everybody would come across the street to the Post that was just inside the Detroit border, because you could actually have a dance floor. Those are the 2 things I remember about that.
It wasn't really a dance floor. You just danced wherever you could.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to age myself. I started DJing at that Post in Grosse Pointe in 96. When we were 22, the day before Thanksgiving. This would have been 95. someone said, you need to go to this place. So we went day before Thanksgiving, and there was an old line that the post said, be here by 9 or wait in line. And it was very accurate. If you were if you were there 5 after 9, Grosse Pointe was like 5 after 10, you were sitting in line for an hour. Like, you just weren't getting in.
What were the bangers of that era?
I have a Spotify post list of those days. And here's the thing. Bobby and Smith are the ones that kind of curated like what the post sound was. And like the music was insanely unique. And this is like when Sweet Caroline was like not a cliche like thing of the baseball game. You would hear like Cecilia, that like Prince, Michael Jackson, like there was a little bit of everything. Like the most hip hoppy song was like Will Smith, Miami. But you would play like James Lade, Kid Rock, Wasting Time. I'm just trying to think of like all like the mainstays of like stuff that would just, you'd play obviously, I'm trying to think, Time Warp occasionally, but like Paradise by a Dashboard Light, that was like an old post Detroit fave. It was really awkward, and it was bad, and it was old music, but it was unique. Like, you knew you were at the post when like that stuff, and it changed when all the new ones opened, but like the old original post was like really bad, old, great music that was just super unique to the bar.
But I think that part of town has this thing where like the 80s never died. So let me tell you, I graduated in the late 90s, and my senior song was Footloose in the late 1990s. So like the old music never dies over there. You can go over there and still stuff from the 70s. There is something about that like Grosse Pointe Park area around it. Because I mean, yeah, people say the points, but there's also, and there's more and more people moving in over there again, which is great to see. Alter and Morningside and East English Village. There's something about that East Side vibe that somehow like stays in that period of time. I don't know what it is, but it just does.
But so back then that strip was smoking hot. You had the Village Idiot, you had the Post, there was a bar called, I remember it was like Five for Fighting, which is a great name for a hockey bar. Like no fights happen there ever. Across the street was, Marge's, Tom's Oyster Bar. There was I remember Leopard Carpet. God, I couldn't remember the name, but and then we used to pregame at Ye Old Tap Room.
Oh, and to this day, if you have not been to Ye Old Tap Room and you love any kind of craft beer, you need to go through there because all the international beer selection, they were doing all this stuff before it was like a hot thing, right? Like Ye Old Tap Room. Also, fun fact, former streetcar barn, because that's where the streetcars turned around for the Detroit Street Railway. So interesting little facts about that.
Yeah, they still do the is it quarter beers or something? They have a prohibition party every year still. There's always a house cat. I remember back in the day, you would just be sitting at the bar and they go, up, lift up your beers, and then the cat would walk across the bar and then you put your beers back down. Fantastic. There was the only place that used to do Swill of the Month and used to get dented up dinger cans for $1 a piece. So we would fill tables up of like Mill Best, whatever the hell they get your hands on. We didn't care. We're kids.
Oh yeah.
But like, that's the thing. Like, going back to the post, and I'll end on this. Like, I don't know if they're gonna know. Like, is it gonna be like, it is gonna be? It's gonna be me telling my daughter Gretchen, that's turning 21 in June, all the great stories when me and Ma got married downtown and we went to the post, and here's the pictures, and there's I don't know if the lore outside of like me telling my kids, like my generation I don't know if it's gonna resonate outside of that.
Yeah, one never knows. Well, sometimes a place just gets a vibe that infuses it. You don't even need, like, there's enough people like you telling those stories that have been to those places where the vibe kind of builds up and it can be a place people go. The thing is, that vibe is so important, especially if you look at how things are right now in like the going out world. It's maybe crazy to you and I and our age group. You and I are close. You can probably tell by listening, you're a little separated, but we're kind of close. And then people say in their 20s today, and what they're into, the vibe check is still like it's a very important thing, and to make a place kind of go. You were talking in the intro about Scout not making it. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting to me because you look at Scout on the outside, you're like, oh, like pinball games and all that other stuff. But it was a situation of grand opening, grand closing. And I hear that like people either find the vibe or not. Like if you're talking about out in Ferndale, places like Ferndale Project have found like a neighborhood business and lots of people coming in and going out of that thing. And then others haven't. It's really interesting to me.
If I could, if I would have done it all over again, I would have opened up a bar in East Lansing. My daughter and her friends paid $45 cover for whatever football game that Saturday night, like a month ago, and I'm like, you paid what? $45, like to get in?
What?
They go, yeah, they have like fast pass and like this, and I'm like, oh my, and it's all cash. I'm like, oh my god.
Have you been to East? Were you at East Lansing before your daughters went to college there ever?
I never went there once.
Okay, because it is like there are sections of it, like the bar section and stuff. Because I remember I would visit friends back in the day. You'd go around to whatever, right? And those sections are now built up with like apartment buildings and like it's a complete like there's some of the same old bars that were there, but now it's like a little mini like hotspot city in some ways with like new construction and like one of those like fancy like athletic hotels or whatever. It's something else to see where I was like, okay, East Lansing, I had no idea that was going to happen here, but it sure did, because I kind of thought East Lansing would be one of those places that it always kind of would stay what it is, right? You've got your steady flow of college kids and whatever. And all of a sudden I'm just like seeing new apartments and all this stuff like right across from the campus. It's kind of crazy.
So John that owns Detroit Shipping Company, he bought is it Lansing Shuffle, Randy? Is that what it's called? He kind of like a shipping like a food container, a food hall, right where the baseball park is in Lansing proper. So like, yeah, it's definitely up and coming out there. But no, I went to Jared, I went to Wayne State back in the day where you could only go to Alvin's circa 1891 or Z's, and like pretty much that was the only places we ever hung out.
Well, you could have Old Miami too. I mean, Old Miami was around when my dad went to Wayne State in the 60s. So
see, we never went down there. It was always, we were content with those three. So when we never went farther down past. So like I never got to go to the like back in the, this is what, early 90s. Yeah, missed a lot of those.
Well, the Old Miami's coming up on their one of their anniversaries. I really do think it's a dog park for humans. Like when the weather's nice, it's really great to like go hang out there. And Circa, man, until they closed, and I don't know if they've reopened or what it is over there, but until Circa closed, not a darn thing changed about that place in years.
Warm beer, soggy chips. Yeah, that was 100 degrees. Yeah, that was I always went for Z's, so the gumbo. So that was that if I ever had to eat or wanted to eat, that was my loved going to Z's. So Jared, one of the things that I always liked, or at least that you did, we didn't really get into it much. I know people hate bragging about yourselves, but I want to brag about you. Is out of your episodes, like you actually like curate proper content. We're not just like I figure like this show, we're kind of, it's shooting the breeze, like it's bar conversation, right? But like you were the only one in town covering DCFC, and I was going to see, I've been seeing them, and I've had season tickets off and on since they were at Cass Tech. And now they all grows up and they get into third league, and now they're gonna get their own stadium. Like this is I feel bad because I like the whole Hamtramck vibe. That's one of my favorite things to do. I liked Hamtown before DCFC, but now, I feel like that whole area is going to miss something by those events not being there.
Well, I feel like in a former life, or there was an alternate life path where Bob Waltenspiel lives on like Poland Street in Hamtramck or something, You've
been to my house. My street is basically Hamtramck in Auburn Hills. Like this is like the houses are 10 feet apart. The garage is in the alley. Yeah. In back, I mean, it's pretty much the new build, old. Yeah, trust me, not a day goes by, a week goes by. I'm going to be honest, where I'm not looking on Yemen's by Whiskey in a Jar or by DCFC by the stadium. If there's any what houses are for sale and how much they're going for, I look constantly as either an Airbnb, like some, I don't know, I don't even know what I'd do with it if I ever bought one. But I constantly look at real estate in Hamtown. Should have bought in 09. I know. Should have done a lot of things in 09.
Yeah, so many things in 09, right? Like all of us are like, oh, everything's crashing. It's like, no, that's when we should have bought. That's absolutely.
You don't know. Like I tell the story all the time. When everything crashed, Ford was $1. And I called everyone I knew that was buying, and I said, are you people that worked at Ford, guys that traded for a living? I said, are you buying Ford? They go, nope, it's going to go private. And of course it shoots up. But then, you pick the right things, you pick the wrong things. That's why not everybody's a billionaire on the stock market.
I was listening to a podcast with somebody who I guess has made a lot of money. And it's funny, he's very self-deprecating about it. He's like, yeah, I got lucky a couple of times. Like, yeah, I worked hard, but in order to get to the level where you have like go to Brazil money whenever you want, you need to kind of there's an element of work, no doubt, to get to the opportunity of that. But like, there's also an element of luck in this that's kind of crazy. You mentioned Detroit City FC. I was at Michigan Central for their holiday shopping, and I was crossing that, like, they have this walking bridge. It takes you from the parking garage into New Lab and the new beautiful station, if anybody has not gone. And I looked over and I saw the old Southwest Hospital, which is where that stadium is going to go. And like in my mind, I could totally see how that's going to fit perfectly in that neighborhood, because there's already a building of that scale right there. And I was like going in, and I mean, Michigan Central is absolutely gorgeous. It's great. They're doing like a little shopping thing in there, a few different things that you can check out. There's like this great like coffee shop / like open area that you can go to. Like, if you've ever been to the Detroit Institute of Arts and seen their like cafe at the DIA where you can hang out and meet people, they have something like that at Michigan Central now. So it's great to see like this progress. And although I think, I have a lot of love for Hamtramck and like the narrow streets and everything like that, I think what they're going to create in Corktown, along with not just the stadium, but I'm sure there's going to be other developments with it, it's going to be something special.
See, I remember when you answer this better than me. I remember when that jail got half built and Gilbert was supposed to make an MLS team, and that's when all the guild was like, no MLS.
I wouldn't be surprised to see an MLS. I wouldn't be surprised to see an MLS team here at some point. I mean, I know some people love it, some people hate it. I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen. I mean, this is Detroit, man. Like, I love DC. I love what's happening. I love the independent vibe, but I also, having now covered this town for a while, we love major league teams, and a lot of sports fans out there still really want that, like, the big show. You got the Lions, you got the Tigers and the Red Wings and all that. Like, the core Detroit sports fan wants what they see as the best, which is, MLS in America. I don't know what you think. You're a big soccer fan.
I'm going to make some enemies. I don't care. If you don't want MLS coming here, you're not a soccer fan. You're just about your own thing.
I have heard that sentiment a lot, just not posted online.
Yeah, I'm not going to say you're not a real soccer fan, but you're all about your little thing you created that wasn't even yours. Yeah, I would love to. I love both. Like, here's the thing: just because the Tigers are here doesn't mean I don't go to a Mud Hens game in Toledo once a year. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take away from anything. It only brings it back. It only brings it up. But that's, I digress.
Oh yeah, I actually love seeing a Mud Hens game. I went down. I saw a Mud Hens game in Columbus. That was a lot of fun.
That is the Toledo thing. So we used to go to Toledo Comic-Con. That's kind of how I got introduced to the whole little district with the boar. There's like 5 or 6 bars. That's a fun. But the weird thing is there's like 10 bars and they're all the same, and they all have the same bands, and they have all the same drink prices, and they have all the, like, the vibe felt like, but they're all packed and it was all fun. Like, I had a great time in that. It's a very underrated town. And then they got some Tony Pacos to wash the beers down. So
wash it down.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're in Boston, or wash the whatever accent that is.
So are you, like, outside of what we see in the press and all that, what else is anything on the docket for, like, we all like, what's going on in Detroit? It looks, it's starting to look like, now that the Hudson building's up, I don't want to say what's next, but, like, it's starting to, everything's starting to, like, come together, I feel.
I think what's next is going to be the stuff that people dare to dream. So, I had a mentor who recently passed, and she said something really cool. And she, from the beginning, it's like, whatever dream you have, dream bigger. And was somebody who was actually key in putting together the Udolph Garden on Belle Isle. And that is designed by, I don't expect everyone to have gone to this fancy garden on Belle Isle, though it is really, really cool. But designed by the same guy who did the Lurie Gardens and the High Line. So the Lurie Gardens in Chicago and the High Line in New York. So, like, what are the next things that Detroit's going to do that we don't even imagine yet? And I think that's going to be some of what's cool in the upcoming years. I think in time, we're going to be awarded another Super Bowl, because with the Lions winning more often, I think this is a better culture now under Sheila Ham-Ford and Dan Campbell and everything that's happening over there. I would love to see another Super Bowl. I remember when the Super Bowl was here the last time. I can only imagine how much better it's going to be now. We showed what we could do with the NFL draft. I remember so many skeptics thinking that we could not pull off the NFL draft, and we sure did, with, frankly, room to spare. Like, we handled all those people, and there is still room to spare when you go outside of like the perimeter. It was amazing.
You couldn't have paid me. So like, we had an event, my work had an event at the Microsoft building across the street in like the 5th floor, the Microsoft Tech Center. And we got to watch the whole thing. And we got there super early because we had to set up 3:00. It's already 10, 20 rows deep in the front row, and they didn't move. And literally as all the clients were coming in and looking, they're like, where's everybody peeing? It's like literally the sentiment between everybody. And then he's like, yeah, my son's down there. He's been in line for a hot dog for an hour. So I'm hoping when we do pull these events off and it looked great, that like people listen, you know what I mean? I don't think they could have foresaw that many people, because like to do something like that, it's a huge just to feed and to unpee. Is that how what's the word I'm looking for? People.
Well, I think that there is an energy there that, I mean, I know it makes some people uncomfortable. Change is difficult. But there's like an energy and a momentum there for new things. Like if you were talking about Cosm, like that is like the definition of what it's going to be like to go out in the future, right? Because, sure, there's sports bars and whatever, but we have so many things that are conveniences in our homes, that we have great screens, great audio, other stuff. What's going to make it the great tourism draw? And I think one of the changes that's happened, there is the downside to some that, you don't really have as much office traffic, in all of in many of your central cities. Now you work downtown now, so you see some things, but it's more and more of a regional tourist destination. And who would have thought Detroit tourist destination 15 years ago? But I tell you, it is. I tell you that people fill up those Airbnbs and they fill up those hotels. And I talk to people who have like second homes that are apartments in Detroit, because it's just so cool to be around on the weekends. And I think that there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of things that we could do. I'm a longtime city resident, and so there's a lot of things that could be done to include residents going forward, but you got to have the money coming in to pay people, and I think that's a good thing.
I'm not trying to say this, so like this, maybe this is in my 30s talking, but like typically this is the one thing Detroit's missing is on non-event nights, bars dying at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm not saying that they need to open up late, but like it's a ghost town if there's not a concert, hockey, Pistons, Tigers going on.
I agree. And I think the answer to that is residents. I think about Eastern Market, and I think Eastern Market should be open 5 or 7 days a week. You and I both, you go to Philadelphia and the Central Market, you go to all these different things. There's a coursing action through it. Well, there still needs to be a lot more residents. Look, this is bold, but we're talking about big dreams here. You look at the way like a place like Chicago is laid out, or some other big cities. You could move as many people as like live in Sterling Heights into greater downtown, and you'd still have room. If you built the right buildings and put in the right stuff, you could bring in 100,000 more people And that's what it's going to take residents, because it's residents that like will come out on a Wednesday to go do it. You go to other parts of town that they, that place down the corner or whatever. And I'll talk to business owners who own a place in the suburbs and own a place downtown. And that is the difference. That is the difference.
Here's the thing.
That's the key we need.
No, but here's the thing. If you need to get, you need to put up apartment buildings, that have the same pricing, the max pricing that Rochester Hills puts out. You can't have it.
I do not disagree. I 100% agree.
The problem is Detroit's 40% more, and Rochester Hills is already expensive, and you get detractors. Like I said, if there was a time where I was going to move down on above Nikki's Pizza. This is the year before I got married, and it was a 2,700 square foot on the 4th floor, just open loft, and it was $1,700 a month. And I was like, I should have done it, but I was like, where am I going to park my car? Where am I going to get, I got to go back to Ferndale for groceries, type of thing.
And
I didn't think it through. I should have just moved in. Should have bought the
Yeah, you should have bought the building, because it would be in better. Yeah. It would be in better shape now. But I mean, there are those things like groceries. You've got Rivertown Meyer. You've got various things that that are there now. But I agree. One of the challenges is that it's just so expensive to build anywhere. But Detroit has got to do some work on that. I think leaders know this. We've got a series coming up. They Might Be Mayor, and actually we're having already recorded conversations with people who are running for mayor, because Mike Duggan is done. He's going to go do something else. And that is a thing that I think people really understand. There's actually been work to reduce the property tax rates and like take it down as things roll off, and not just go spend the money again. There is progress that is being made, but you're right. There needs to be that scale. And I don't know whether it's support or incentives or market, or I don't know all the answers, but getting it to a place where it's on par with some of that more higher end stuff, because it's not cheap out in Auburn Hills anymore.
No, but they're putting apartments up. They're putting apartments up like candy.
Yeah, people don't. And a lot of the media focuses on Detroit, but you're right. Out in Auburn Hills is where a lot of that growth is. And in my opinion, that should also be happening in Detroit.
But here, I mean, I went on Zillow right now and just to look. It's a townhouse, kind of like my neighborhood, right? These are the townhouses that are in front of the complex where I live. It's 2-bed, 3-bath, 2,900 square feet. It's gorgeous. It looks like, all brick, but it's, $800,000. And it's a townhouse.
Yeah.
And that's on Leverett Street. You know what I mean? There's, and that's a little bit in from, it's on Bagley and Rosa Parks-ish, Trumbull.
We need to build more than just for the New York prices, because there's a lot of people coming in from out of town. That is true. There are people moving in, but you got to get more than that. And I don't know what the magical math is, but there needs to be some sort of development thing that makes it work to get there. And there's got to be somebody smarter than me to figure out how to leverage the land, the pricing, the scale of things. Because when you put stuff at a reasonable price, it sells, man.
But Jared, if you go in Chicago and you got every 24-year-old that just got his first job after an MBA that works for KPMG, they're all in apartments downtown. They can all afford them. You know what I mean? There's those. There's an abundance of it, and I think that's what we're missing, is getting that 22-year-old from Rochester Hills that gets his first job with Accenture. And you're buying an apartment downtown.
Well, I mean, there's going to be a few hundred apartments that go in behind where that Cosm's going. There's 600 apartments going up near where our studio is over on Techtown, over by the Pistons Performance Center. They're going to put up 600 apartments. There's some things that are starting to move forward, but you're right. And I think it's just so important to have that. And then also out in the neighborhoods like where I am, a way to encourage development and talk to neighbors where it's like, we can't build things like we did in the 1920s. I love all the old homes. I really do. I value that. But you can't build that kind of stuff anymore. Nobody lives in 5 bedrooms, but each bedroom is 8 by 9. You know what I mean? Like the stuff that was built back then isn't practical today. Like I'm coming to you from home. The house was built in 1922. It's great to have like a home studio, but literally this bedroom is 8 by 9. Like nobody's doing that in 2024.
Here I'm looking at right on Jefferson, right on the river, right? 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, 1,100 square feet, 330 grand. You think that's great? Like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Still high, but the HOA is 700 a month.
Mm.
And it's like that's another $100,000 worth of house that you can buy. Why wouldn't I just go to Hazel Park, Ferndale?
Well, so there are some people starting to make some interesting ways. So, excuse me, interesting things. The Great Water Opportunity people, they're building a series of homes over on Fisher Street near Indian Village, and they've been able to keep the cost down a little bit by doing projects that are by zoning. Like already, you don't have to do zoning approvals, so they just build what's allowed to be on that lot, and they've kind of figured out this thing where they can get into the 3s, 4s, and give the amenities, but you're also right next to Indian Village, which is a really strong neighborhood. Yeah. And if you're into that kind of thing, like I love Indian Village. I know some people may be a little bit too quiet for folks, but if you want a place in Detroit where you're just going to be able to like go walk the dog or whatever, Indian Village, West Village is it. If you want to be right next to all the bars, I mean, there are bars in West Village, don't get me wrong, but like if you want like that fast paced thing, you want to be more in Midtown.
There's one.
There's 2 birds, and Randy doesn't go there anymore because he's down in Midtown now.
It's Marshall's. That's the bar.
Oh, Marshall. Oh, Marshall.
Oh, that's way over.
That's way over.
Jefferson Chalmers.
That's the one I like out there.
Marshall's is fun though. I think I was able to verify from a listener the bar still wobbles. I haven't been there in about a year, but the bar still wobbles, which is important. If you're gonna have a dive bar, things need to not work properly.
Bring back Tom's Tavern. That memory just came up for me on Facebook when I took Ming and Mike there, where you put a golf ball in the bar and let it. It was like Pinewood Derby racing. How fast that thing would end up at the end. You had to knock twice to get let in. That was one of the more bizarre nights of my life. We're sitting at this crooked bar. We're the only people in the place. And these 3 guys walk in. One has a stand-up bass, and they just start playing music. And we're like, were they supposed to be here? Or are they just like coming, hanging out? Fantastic night, though. That place was a gem.
Held together by like duct tape and like just plywood boards. Like once a year, somebody would just like drive into it or something. But I mean, it was beloved by people for years. Bill Bonds would go there. Like Old Man Ilitch would go there sometimes. And so here's the thing. And if you don't know about Tom's Tavern, go Google it. It's been closed for a little while. It was over on the west side, slanted to all get out floors. The floors were so slanted that the bar stools were like cut specifically, and you had to put them in the right order or else they wouldn't like sit right. And I think one thing about stuff, we're talking about like bars and changing what people are into. One thing about this today that I think people miss. People think that like we're sharing these stories that's all about the booze and going out. No, it was about the people. Like the people over at Tom's Tavern were so much fun, and the memory and the conversations. That's what it was really about. It wasn't about, sure, we had beers, and there are places you can really get into the art and craft of cocktails, and I do enjoy that, but it was never really about the beers. It was about bringing people together. And that's what I want to make sure happens. Whatever people decide to do and however they want to do it. I think it's so important. Us as humans, we need to be together, man.
There is, on Yelp, there's still 13 photos for Tom's. And you know what makes my heart warm is there's no 1-star reviews. No pretentious asshole complained there wasn't sushi there and they didn't have whatever for their drink. But no, there's some the picture of the outside, it looks, because I've never seen it during the day, it looks crazier during the day with the light than I remember it. Jer, we're gonna cut you loose. I could sit here and talk to you all night. We obviously we got to catch up as humans anyway. We've been trying to get on the calendar. So you can find Jer at dailydetroit.com. Subscribe everywhere fine podcasts are sold, and to his newsletter that he sends to me that I don't read. I'm sorry. I haven't unsubscribed though. I still get them.
You know what? Just click a link. It'll be fine. The thing is, this is why we do a newsletter. Some people really love the podcast. Other people really love the newsletter. I find that that way we can hit all kinds of people and however they get into stuff.
Yeah. No.
I really want to meet somebody who says, I need more email.
Would you like me to forward you some messages, Randy? They do exist.
I just don't understand it.
It's a thing. But hey, we're going to wrap things up for this episode of the IT and the D Show. On behalf of Bob and Randy, do us all a favor. Drink up your drinks. Get your phone numbers. You don't got to go home. You just got to get the hell out of here. See you next week. Drive careful. Beat it.
Goodbye.